Hey everyone, this is just going to be a quick story on how I got into real estate. Hey, so welcome back to the channel Entrepreneur Everything, and I'm your host, Andrew. So this one's going to be a little bit different than what I've been doing in the past. A lot of people ask me how I got into real estate, right? That's a common question that you get asked. And mine's pretty simple. I'll get into it, right? So I was just getting out of the military about six years ago almost now. So just getting out of active duty. I moved to Ohio. I was working, and my grandfather passed, right? So he had a lot of real estate, and my mom was the executor of estate of all of his estate, right? So including the real estate. So some of the houses were upside down, and some of the houses just weren't equity enough to keep. I also wasn't in the real estate business at the time, so I didn't know what was going on with it. I knew they were houses. I'd actually just bought my first house that I live in currently around that same time. So I had never really thought about getting into real estate. I knew it was an avenue to make money, but that was really never my goal. I didn't think about it that much. I was really just trying to work, save money, finish school at the time. But this opportunity came about. My mom wanted to keep this particular house in the family. It was the house he grew up in. So it had a lot of sentimental value to her and to him to pass down to keep in the family. So it was also one of the best houses of the lot, but it also owed the most money on it. At the time, I was doing okay. Money-wise, I wasn't in any debt. I got out of most of my debt, leaving the military, transitioning, not knowing if I was going to have a job or not. So I was doing okay. I didn't have all the cash ready, but I could get a loan if I needed to. So what was owed on the house was about $18,000, right? So I was saying, could I get a personal loan for it? I didn't know much about anything else. I didn't want to get a home loan on it. I didn't think it was going to be enough. I just got this house, so I know what was going on. So I ended up calling USA. They're like, yeah, we'll give you a personal loan. I think it was like 15% interest or something like that for about $18,000. My head wasn't great. It was the highest interest rate loan I've ever had, but I also didn't want to secure it against anything like my truck, my house, or anything else I had. So it was an unsecured, signature only $18,000 loan, which is actually pretty good. So I'm not complaining about that looking back on it. But so the whole process was a little bit different. The house was still in the estate when I purchased it, right? From my mother. I thought everything was smoothed out between the people that were supposed to get the house and the people that weren't supposed to get the house. They, in my eyes, abandoned the house. There were still payments to be made on the house. Why she couldn't make the payments out of certain accounts, I don't know. There was someone in the house as a renter paying rent. So I didn't know all the details. I know that when I get a house, there's a renter in there, they start paying me rent. Naive, possibly, definitely, looking back on it. But, we don't know what we don't know, right? So, and I wasn't smart enough to figure out what I didn't know at the time, which, was a big mistake. But we'll get to that part, right? So going through this process, it was slated in the will to give the house to my aunt. From my understanding, my mother had talked it out with my aunt. My aunt had then disavowed the house. We don't want it. I don't want anything to do with it, because she could have then paid the mortgage on the house or paid the house off, put the mortgage in her name. 100 things she could have done. Mind you, this house was in escrow probate for 2 years at this point, right? So the whole thing took 4 years for it to settle his estate. So this 2-year period, she has not done anything to get this house. My mother brought me this deal. Within the 6 months, I was already working on acquiring the house, right? So I knew it was cash flowing. I knew $16,000, $18,000 wasn't that much. It needed a little bit of work, but nothing that he was already livable, so I wasn't worried about it. So I sent my mother the money. All I ever knew was bill of sale. That's how I always sold, bought things, bill of sale. Most things were only, cars, bikes, four-wheelers, things like that. Never a house, but I didn't know what to expect with it. I didn't know about, deeds. Even though I had one for my own house, I didn't know I needed to get the deed. It needed to go through a title process to get the deed recorded. None of that stuff. I also was informed that I couldn't even get any of that until the estate closed, because they couldn't sell it in the estate, even though that I had paid off the mortgage. I've got the mortgage papers saying that the mortgage had been paid off. I got the bill of sale from my mother, who was the executor of the estate. I'm thinking everything's good, and then when the estate actually closes, the deed gets transferred in my name, quitclaim deed. I had to look up quit claim. You quit it, not a quick. It's quit. But I had to look up all that stuff. I call it a quit claim for a long time, actually. But you're quitting the property. It's where you can just transfer a deed with no money transferred. So you just give it to somebody else instead of selling it to somebody else. Different type of deed process. Much simpler. But thought that was all going to happen, right? But in the meantime, I'm not worried about it. I got a renter. I'm trying to be the best landlord possible. This property is still about an hour away from me. But the landlord, or the tenant in there, wasn't any trouble. He was an older gentleman. I think he was on Social Security. He was a hoarder. So every time I go in there, there'd just be stuff everywhere. It wasn't dirty, but it was like he'd put a path through the entire house. 2-story house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It was just stuff everywhere, right? But I was like, whatever. You've been living like this for this long. Who am I to tell you to stop it? Right? And he paying rent. I also knew that the rent was under market value. So the rent should have been about $800. He was only paying $500. And to even pay my loan back in time, I needed to up that, right? So I told him, I gave him 6 months before I was going to up it to $600. He didn't like it, but he was going to stay for a little bit to get everything situated. So he was paying rent. I didn't have any problems. An issue came when I was in California. I was in California for work. I was flying back and forth once a month, but I lived out there for the most part throughout the week. And he said the heater broke. I'm sorry. He never turned the heat on. He only used space heaters, right? So when I went to get insurance for the property, the USA insurance came out there like, well, we're not going to insure it. I was like, why? Well, you got daisy chained. Everything was daisy chained through the plugs. Like, you see, there was clutter everywhere. They were like, we're not going to insure this house. I'm like, well, dang. And I was like, well, why do you have space heaters? He was like, well, I never turn the heater on. It's too expensive. So then going to turn the heater on, it didn't work. So as a landlord responsibility, I knew it needed heat. So I got a new heater unit, new furnace, and I think that cost me about $2,200. Looking back, wasn't a bad price, but maybe it was $5,200. I think it was only like $2,200. I gotta look at these numbers, but it wasn't a bad price looking back now how much I pay for these units. So I got that installed. So we had heat. I told him he couldn't use those space heaters anymore. He wasn't happy about it because it was going to be, he was in one room. So he started to heat the whole house. It probably would have cost him more money, but that's not my problem. We need this house insured, and you're over here daisy chaining extension cords through all this clutter. It's fire hazard, right? So not many issues with him, but that was one of them. And I thought I was pretty generous about giving him 6 months to increase the rent. which I still think that's generous, but neither here nor there, especially $100. $100 in someone's budget is a lot of money. So getting back to the house, right? So I had him in there a year and a half. I was collecting rent from this guy. That I was managing this house. My aunt knew about this house, knew that somebody was in there. For a year and a half, no questions were asked of who was in there or who was getting the money for this rent, who was paying the mortgage. Nothing, right? So he ended up moving out because he didn't want to pay the $600 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I'm like, all right. Not wanting him to leave, but at the same time, knowing that I could get more money, I had to make sure he got all his stuff out of there. So I was definitely adamant about, you got to get all this stuff out of here when I give you a security deposit. Which he didn't give me a security deposit anyway, so he didn't have a security deposit. So I had no way of collecting anything. And he was generally a nice guy. But, I mean, I wasn't going to charge him even if I had to clean all that crap out. I'm not a very good landlord. But that's here nor there. So I definitely got him to get all this stuff out. I was surprised at how much he got out and how he was able to get out. Where he put it all is another question. Because I don't know where he moved. Hey, that's on him. Good on you. If you ever see this video, thanks for getting all this stuff out. But, so I go in and start cleaning it out, getting it start painted. I start cleaning up all the other stuff that's broken. He was in there for years. So, you know, things just wear and tear. Carpet's dirty. Carpet on the porch was ripping up. Banisters were coming down. Smoke detectors, refrigerator. Cleaned everything up, right? And around this time, the estate closed. Before I was about to move another renter in there on Section 8, and the estate was closing, I then get a call from my aunt saying, what is going on with the house? I was like, what do you mean what's going on with the house? It's my house. What do you mean what's going on with that? And she's like, nah, it's my house. I was like, okay, because technically the house was willed to her. And I thought she was on board. But at the same time, if I was in her position, would I have done the same thing? Maybe. Would I have done it to family? Maybe not. Now, this is an aunt that I grew up with for all my life. Like, we have no issues at all. Like, we would play volleyball together. I mean, I'd come up here for the summer times. They'd come down there. Like, she's been in my life, my whole life, up until this point. And now, all of a sudden, when you get money involved, things change. Money changes people. Happens all the time. You got a whole rule. Don't lend family money. Give them money. And never expect it back. Or it'll ruin you and them. But if they don't pay you back, don't give them any more money. But, so, get the call. She's like, I don't know what's going on. It's about to be my house. I was like, well, I already paid off the mortgage. That's my house. She's like, well, no one told me about this. I was like, I'm pretty sure my mom told you about this because I hadn't been in contact with either. And that's my fault as well, that I didn't contact her directly to say, hey, you cool with me buying this house? That would have been the nail in the coffin that I needed, that I didn't do. So that's also on me, not my mother or anybody else. It's the whole thing is on me because I should have got an attorney involved and should have done the paperwork the right way and not trust other people that weren't necessarily knowledgeable in the situation. Only take advice from people that have done it before or are knowledgeable in the activity. That is a, what is that? Richest Man in Babylon pillar right there. So that's some gem right there. Right? Everyone has advice, but only take it from the people that can give it accurately. So from there, we had to then set up a mediation, right? So we did a mediation at my grandmother's house, and we all came there, and I was there, and I thought I was gonna go okay, And my grandmother was like, what do you plan on doing? I was like, well, I don't want to sue her for this house, but I mean, it's a lot of money. So now at this point, I've already put about $25,000 in the house, from the purchase of the house, the HVAC system, the clean out of the house, some other stuff. So right now I'm about $25,000 in it, right? That's a lot of money. I'm not just leaving it on the table. I'm not going to just give you $25,000 without a fight, right? So my grandmother didn't want me to sue her. My grandmother, this being her daughter, and I'm her grandson. Some stuff going on between them. She didn't want me to sue him. So I'm like, I don't want to sue her either. I just want the house. Or at least compensated for the house. Right? Like, to me, that's only fair. Now you've got a house that's paid off, essentially, right? That wouldn't have been paid off beforehand, because my mother would have let it go to foreclosure and just let the house go away. She tried to avoid that by me keeping the house. But since I paid off a house that she still has, will to her, she's getting a house that she would have never gotten in the first place, because it would have got to foreclosure and the bank would have took it back. I don't know if she ever noticed that. Didn't notice that. Kind of hard not to see that aspect of it, but it is what it is. So moving forward with that, she pretty much just said, I'm not signing this quit claim deed over to you. It's my house. You guys did this behind my back. And I was like, I didn't do anything behind your back. I was told from the executive of the state that this house was good to be sold. I don't need to then confront you that is the house sold, sellable or not, right? But could I have? Yes. Do I need to? Technically, no. But either way, that's how she felt. She felt betrayed. She felt manipulated. But, I mean, the only person gaining in this situation was her. So it's kind of hard to feel manipulated, cheated, or any other thing if you're the only one gaining in the situation. But, I guess that's opinion-based, subjective, right? So, had the meeting, powwow, meeting is going, grandmother starts crying, she starts crying, I'm like, okay, this is a sensitive moment, the daughters, she's throwing my mom's name in there, but I didn't even know they had fell out like that, but apparently they did. Yeah, it just got intense, so I'm thinking in my head, like, this is gonna go good, alright? Then she says at the end of it, fine, just take the house. And I was like, bet. I was like, I'm thinking it was a win in my book. I was even offering to pay her out of the house. Like, it doesn't get much better than, it does get better. You can get a free house, right? It gets much better. So I was offering to pay her out of the house just to avoid the court costs, because I knew I was going to have to pay those if I sued her. So I was going to give her money to walk away for a house that I already paid for. I might as well double down on it, because I didn't want to lose the asset, right? I knew it was worth more than the $25,000 I'd already put in it. So I was like, well, I'll just give you what I can. She didn't want it. I don't know if pride was over it, or she was actually thinking smartly and thinking that why would I take this, $5-10 if I have a 25, actually like a, $45,000, $50,000 house that's making money already. It's just, yes, it makes a lot more sense to keep the house. But she was definitely going through some financial troubles at the time. I would have thought she would take the deal. But hey, that's here nor there. Now, I mean, my family probably watched this video. Probably all 5 of them that even support me watching this channel. So I definitely appreciate everyone who does watch this video. You greatly appreciate it, and the support is there. Thank you very much. So for the 5 family members that watch this channel, I appreciate it. And those are my brother, mother, and probably 3 others, right? Thanks, guys. So I'm not worried about burning too many bridges with this one, right? This has happened about 3.5 years ago. So this could be a controversial video. So meeting done, adjourned. She's like, take the house. I'm like, bet, this is a win. Didn't get her to sign any paperwork because I'm thinking everything's emotional right now. I'll just come back later. Wrong. Bad idea. Should have got her to sign it on the spot. 2-3 days later, I'm going like, hey, you want to sign this paperwork? She's like, I ain't signing nothing. She done calmed down, rethought everything through. I don't know. Terrible idea. So now I'm like, all right, I got no choice but to sue you right there. She's like, fine, do what you got to do. I'm like, all right. So I'm having to call lawyers and stuff. Like, this is not a simple case. So I'm calling all these lawyers, doing this and that, getting these consultations. I don't know what you need to do. The lawyers are telling me I need to sue my mom, the executive estate, for a fraudulent purchase to reverse the whole transaction. Some people say I need to just sue her personally because she acted fraudulently. And then some people were like, well, you can sue her for my aunt for a unjust funds. I don't remember what the actual cost was. Unjust enrichment was it. That's what it was. So I'm like, this is terrible. So I ended up calling a lawyer, and they were like, yeah, the unjust enrichment, that could work. I was like, all right. I don't know if this lawyer is going to watch it. I'll probably never use him again, but I think he did an all right job. I think he was kind of real condescending most of the part, so not too happy about that. Especially when I'm paying you money. It was the problem was I couldn't find enough lawyers that would take the case. So he had, the leverage, right? I still needed to sue. I couldn't represent myself because I didn't know what I was doing. But a lot of it seemed kind of condescending and irritating. How he was talking to me. I didn't appreciate it. But, that was also one of my first lawyers I've ever dealt with. Now I know that, you guys work for me. So, for any lawyers who are watching this, you guys work for me now. And if I don't like what you're doing, you're going to leave. And I'll just get another one, right? It is what it is at this point. So, got the lawyer, served her, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff happened. So, got to court, trial. This is like a year later, right? Of these arraignments and, I don't know if arraignment's the right word, whatever. And a year later till we actually go to trial because the judge let it go to trial. Trial might be the wrong word. Where we were in front of a judge. I had to get on the stand. My mom was on the stand. They put my aunt on the stand. And, there was no audience. I think this is way out pre-COVID, 3 years ago. So, I thought it went good. Lawyer said, I don't know. He could never really give me a good answer of how it was going. I don't know if that's a lawyer thing or not, but I don't think he was too sure how it could go. And lo and behold, it didn't go well. The judge denied the unjust enrichment, and she got to keep the house. And I was out all of the money. He didn't seem it fit to reimburse me for any of the costs that I put into the house. I think he also mentioned that I didn't get a lot of it back. He cut some of it off because I got rental income for it. So he's like, well, you didn't really lose $25,000. You lost whatever a year and a half of income of $600 was. So I was like, okay, I still lost $18,000. What? So then where's that money at? He's like, well, this just isn't unjust enrichment. He's like, and the whole thing was just stupid. Like, who then should I sue then? How am I going to get this money back that she just got a free house for? And this upgraded HVAC system. Oh, man, I've got to put a roof on there, too. Oh, I'm so happy I didn't do that. So, at this point, it took a year and a half. I already had 2 more houses at this point. So, I look at it as a blessing and in disguise, right? You gotta take everything as a blessing and everything as a lesson, rather. It was a blessing. Take everything as a lesson. Because the lesson taught me don't do anything without an attorney, right? So, there's that. Don't do any more backyard bill of sale. Bill of sale means nothing in Ohio, right? For real estate, learned that, right? Learned a lot about the legal system and what it will and won't do for you. I really thought I was going to do something, but Um, I look back and laugh. I mean, it was a very expensive lesson that I'll never make again. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll never make this lesson again. But so, yeah, I lost it, and I was already moving on. I knew that it could go either way when I sued her for it, because it was willed, because we didn't do what we needed to do in the first place with the right paperwork, the right documents. Bill of sale means zero. So I wasn't gonna let me stop. I wasn't gonna let it stop me. And a lot of people, I think, could have gotten stopped after that. I mean, you take a $25,000 loss, 18, whatever. Um, that's a big dent, and it took a big dent out of me, and it took a lot for me to keep moving. But I mean, I wasn't gonna stop. I don't let adversity stop me like that. I mean, most big things that's happened to me have happened after a back step, right? So I'm happy where I'm at. Could I be further? I'd have another property, and probably a lot more money from cash flowing that property into the next property. But I haven't stopped. I'm in a better place than other people are, that do get free stuff. So I take that as a blessing, and I do take that as it might be a little petty. I'm okay with that. That I still think of that I'm higher than that. I took that loss, and I'm still higher than other people. I think you guys can put those dots together. I might edit that part out. Maybe not. I probably don't. It's my video. It's my channel. I do it all. But that's how I got into real estate. That's also how I lost my first house. Send me your thoughts and questions in the chat. Maybe we can discuss it further.